This is Brad A. Milford with the Unlimited Business Wisdom Podcast, where leaders, seasoned entrepreneurs, and business owners share their wisdom. It's straight to the point to respect people's time, and because we know knowledge and wisdom turn to business possibility, and possibility mixed with support and action become reality. In this podcast, we discuss leadership, sales, marketing, operations, team development, quality, and finance to drive sustainable results and everlasting impact to make the world a better place. Thanks for joining us. Matthew, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on, Brett.
Such a pleasure. Glad you took a chunk out of your day to share with us and to be here with everybody listening and watching. Would you be willing to share with the audience who you are and what you do, Matthew?
Yes. My name is obviously Matthew Sullivan. I'm the founder and CEO of QuantmRE. And what we do at QuantmRE is we help homeowners unlock the equity in their homes without taking on more debt. And we enable investors to get involved in what we believe is a hugely exciting asset class, which is the ability to invest in the equity in single-family homes.
Love that. Very precise. I imagine you can get there in 2 or 3 days. You've been doing this for quite a while.
Well, I've been asked it a couple of times before, so I've been practicing my answer.
I love it. No, it's very precise. It's well stated and very eloquent. Thank you. But it makes a lot of sense as well. So we're going to dive into that. Bear with us for just a moment. We're going to dive right in there. Matthew, what's the best thing about being in business? You've been in business for a while. What would you say is the best thing about being in business?
Well, I mean, there's a difference, isn't there? There's being in business and then there's building a business. And I think the two are slightly different, actually, because I think, if you're in business, it can take over. And there's a whole expression where, you either work on the business or you work in the business. So I've always tried to work on the business. And that sort of fuels the creative mind and gives you a much greater sense of satisfaction, I think. So to be able to create and build and grow a business is really the lifeblood of the entrepreneur. That's the thing that makes you leap out of bed in the morning. And I think the problem is that many people end up building a business to a certain point and then just effectively going to work each day, even though it's their own business. So just being able to grow and create and expand is something that is exciting to me every day.
I love it. The growth and expansion. If that's not fun, it might not be for you.
Yes.
I love it. Yeah, too many people chase the wrong things in the beginning and realize, oops, this is hard work.
There is. I mean, but actually hard work is quite good because, if at the end of the day, you have that sense that you've actually given it your all, even though it's been hard work, and you've moved everything along a little bit, I think that can be, incredibly rewarding. I think, and also because it's your own thing. So I think if you, put your shoulder up against the grindstone for someone else, you don't quite get that same sense of satisfaction.
No way I could agree with you anymore. 100%. I love it. The growth and expansion is so important and the satisfaction of that. Well said. Matthew, we hear from other business owners, they're getting so much business sometimes that there's a feeling of overwhelm or chaos that comes with getting so much business. Would you be willing to share your thoughts on that topic?
Yes. One of the most difficult things to manage in a business is growth. It's obviously hard to go from 0 to 1. So that's the big leap, going from no customers to your first few customers. But it is equally challenging and equally able to destroy your business if you cannot manage growth. And so a lot of the ways that we do that really is to be acutely aware of the systems and processes that we have in place. And you have to keep one eye on the future as well as one eye on the present. So it's not just about making hay while the sun shines. It's about thinking, well, what happens if the hay goes away, or what happens if there's too much hay? I'm not sure if hay is a very good metaphor, actually. I'm sort of running out of ways to expand hay, but the point is that you got to be thinking, okay, things are going well right now. What happens if we get twice the number of inquiries? What happens if we get 4 times the number of inquiries? Or if it looks like you're on that trajectory, how do you build the people, the platform, and the processes into your business to make sure that as the expansion comes in, you're always one step ahead of that, so that you can manage that growth while at the same time not blowing all of your capital. So you're building this enormous machine that is underutilized. So it is this constant feeling of checking where you are, where are you going to be in the short term, where's the capital coming in, what's funding it, and making sure that you grow within all of those boundaries. It's like this huge series of simultaneous equations that you have to sort of run to try and maintain that forward momentum without capsizing the ship.
Well said. There's a whole handful of information in what you just shared, but I like the metaphor of hay. I got a kick out of that, actually. And you were talking about growth, so I think it's fitting. But I love what you said about one eye on the present and one eye on the future. I think a lot of people get head down and they're looking at the now, and tend to overlook what needs to happen to move the needle in the future as well. And I love what you shared there, because it's important to get both. And not only did you say that, but you also said to be proactive about it. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but
yes, of course,
to be proactive about that. And that's really important stuff, Matthew. Thank you for sharing.
Sure.
What other successful business owners like yourself, of course, Matthew, ought to be on the Unlimited Wisdom podcast?
Well, funny enough, I've been working with a partner in real estate for must be about 7 or 8 years. And he's a good friend. So partner first, friend next, which I think is always the best way for business relationships. And his name is Tom Bragelman. That's Braegelmann. Now, Tom is a very talented individual who's written a book on real estate investing. And he's been investing for decades. And it's this fantastic story of, starting off with one apartment in a sort of snowy Minnesota town, and then growing into a huge portfolio and managing funds for others. But most importantly, putting all of that, hard-won information into a book. So he's a great mentor. He's a great speaker. He has his own podcast. And I think the sort of lessons that he could share about how he, grew his business and the sort of problems and road bumps that he faced and how he overcame them be pretty interesting to anyone listening. So I'd give him a ring.
Nice. That's excellent. I love it. Nothing like shouting out a your business partner and friend, right? That's the great stuff.
Exactly. Yes.
Especially one who can deliver value. So thank you very much for sharing, Matthew. I appreciate it. Let's get to the crux of this. What piece of wisdom, and I know it's hard to only think of one, right? With the many vast years that many of the guests have, like yourself. What piece of wisdom would you share with other business owners? And let's try to dive into some like how to, or what they can. Let's get to some actionable something, if we can. Let's distill something that they can put in practice today. What would you share?
Well, the most important thing is that today is the beginning to a certain extent. In other words, success, in my opinion, really comes from a combination of factors. It comes from being in the right place at the right time, having the right idea, but also the ability to stick at something. And because it doesn't matter how good your business is or how talented you are as an individual, there will come a point where it feels like the irresistible force has hit the immovable object. And I think if you give up at that point, then success will be quite elusive for you. But all the people that I've ever met, all the successful people have really agreed that success is 95% perspiration and 5% inspiration. So the defining critical, factor is pure dogged determination, the idea of just being able to stick at something come rain or shine, and then just get better and better at it day after day. And then to the point where you've outlived or outgrown or outperformed all of the competitors in the space. And that idea that you had has turned from being an idea into something that's real, because primarily of your ability to make it happen.
I love that. So stick-to-itiveness is what I got from that, and pure dogged determination, which is a term I always
PDD.
love. Yeah, exactly. Good stuff. And I love the perspiration and inspiration. Now, there's a lot of people that have great ideas, but if it's only the knowledge, or if you've just learned it from a book and you haven't really applied the knowledge, then it doesn't really go anywhere. So I love that you highlighted that. It's so important.
Yes.
In your industry, because you've worked this industry and you do have a specific how do we say, like, you're very focused on a very specific thing within real estate and within your industry. And so you do have a I mean, you've been around the way for quite a bit. So what would you say is, for you, what has been the number one determinant? Is it this stick-to-itiveness, or is it something else? What kind of advice would you give the people who are...
No, it is that, because a lot of the times when you come up with ideas, they're just very early stage ideas. And in order to go from the idea stage to the traction stage, there's an enormous amount of things that need to happen. And many of those things you have no idea what they are until you get there. So there's a lot of, sort of, you don't know what you don't know. And so the only way you can actually move forward, I think, is to do things. So activity is another critical point. So just waiting for things to happen or expecting an outcome is really not what's going to propel your business into success. So it's a combination really of you have your idea, stick to your idea, be true to your mission. Don't let other people dissuade you, or don't switch from pillar to post, as it were. So have faith in yourself that your idea is good, but then put the activity in and put the drive in and put the forward momentum in to actually turn that idea into a business. Now, the caveat is, as you go along, you might come across information that means that your original idea needs to be modified or needs to be changed to suit the information that you've received. And many people call this a pivot. And there's nothing wrong with pivoting. What is not advisable is to maintain that same pathway, even though all of the evidence is pointing to the fact that you're going to end up, in some sort of cul-de-sac. So be able to be willing enough to be flexible with your intent and with the outcomes, but still drive forward. So, pivoting or changing or altering your direction is entirely natural and necessary. I mean, think of yourself on a ship. I mean, if the wind sort of changes direction, you need to be able to maintain forward momentum. You've got to change the place where you put the sails.
Well stated. And I'm glad you brought that up too. I'm sure you have too. That's probably why you're mentioning it here today. But I've come across a lot of people who are so rigid in the goal, or so rigid in this idea, that they end up literally putting themselves out of business, or put themselves in jeopardy, or the families in jeopardy, things like that. And so the statement, be rigid in the goal, but flexible in the approach, is what I thought of when you were speaking.
Yes.
But I love your navigation analogy as well. I mean, you got to keep, it's not straight. It's a little bit this way, a little bit that way, a little bit that way. That's how you get to the goal.
Keep moving forwards. That's the thing.
Yeah. That's great. Great advice. Matthew, what kind of what kind of initiatives are you working on in your business right now? Talk to us about your ideal client, what the things that you're doing with capital, with your clients in business. Would you be willing to share?
Yeah, of course. So the business that we're in, we're about 4 years old, and it's a niche business, but it's growing pretty quickly. And what we do is we help homeowners unlock or access the equity in their homes without taking on more debt. So this is a relatively new financial instrument, but the benefits are huge for homeowners that have significant equity, but either cannot borrow money or don't want to borrow money because they don't want the added complication and burden of monthly payments and all of the risk that goes with that. So we are investors. And what that means is that we will invest with a homeowner in exchange for a share of the future value of the property. And what the homeowner gets is cash today. And they can spend it on whatever they want. From our perspective as investors, we get a real estate asset, which means that we're able to share in the future increase in value of the property without having to own the property. So that means that we don't have that same cost and friction associated with being a landlord, because the homeowner looks after the property. Now, we don't go on title, so we don't own the property. So we're not going to come and camp out in your spare bedroom. But what it means is that we benefit from that appreciation. And it means that we can very quickly scale our investments across multiple homes. And as each one of those homes is sold, or if our agreement is refinanced, we get a very solid return on our investment. And at the same time, the homeowner gets a capital sum without monthly payments, where they don't have to pay any tax. And they've got use of that fund, use of those funds for up to 10 years without any payments. So that can be life-changing. And the final piece is that we have a blockchain-powered investment platform that enables smaller investors to buy into this asset class, which is the equity in owner-occupied homes, by buying fractionalized and tokenized home equity agreements. So what we're doing really is opening up this new type of financial instrument for homeowners, and at the same time creating liquidity and tradability in home equity, which is a untapped $25 trillion asset class.
I love this. This is fascinating to me. And so correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not an expert in this like you. And I'm sure the listeners and people watching will be interested as well. So there's two sides of this, is what I heard. And so on the one side, you got, let's say an entrepreneur wants to fund some other stream of income in their business, right? And so they come to you and they own their home, and so they can, it's not a loan. I don't want to call it a loan because that's not what it is, but they can get investments from you to be able to do that on the future sale of their property. Is that correct?
And they've got 10 years. So it's a 10-year agreement where at the end of that 10-year period, they'll need to settle the agreement. But they can settle the agreement at any time during that 10-year period with no early payment penalties. So some people use it for short-term funding, like a year or so. And then the business takes off and they can then buy the agreement back. And some people let it run for longer because it solves a different purpose, or solves a different problem for that person.
Mm-hmm. It's brilliant. I love it. And then on the blockchain side, or did I hear you say then people can get involved in the investment side of it then? So that's their way to fund the investment.
Exactly. So as a homeowner, you receive a capital sum from us as investors. But what we want to do is expand that investor pool so that smaller investors, in other words, people that are not institutions or multifamily offices, they can get involved in this as well. And so our platform takes those home equity agreements, which are typically, let's say, $150,000 a go, and we chop them up into small pieces, and we enable smaller investors to buy a piece of that agreement yet still get the economic benefit of that. And most importantly, you will be able to trade those investments on our platform. So not only can you buy into them, you can actually take your asset, which is represented by a token on the Algorand blockchain, and within our platform, later on this year or possibly next year, early next year, you'll be able to trade. And so we've just announced a partnership with Texture Capital, which is a registered broker dealer with a trading license. So that enables us to trade these deals on our platform. So what we're really trying to build is something that's very similar to like a stock market for home equity.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Matthew, I love this.
Thank you very much.
I love how you articulated it though so simply as well, because I know this can get really technical, it can get deep, it can get financial and all that kind of stuff, but you articulated it just so brilliantly and so simply. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. I know that we could talk business probably for hours and hours, days and days maybe, but I'd love to ask you a question that's a little outside of that. So we learned a little bit about what you're doing, what you're into the last couple of years, but I believe, and I know you do too, that we work to live, not live to work. The other way is not so fun. So Matthew, would you be willing to share what the most fun vacation you've ever had is? This will allow the people to get to know you a little bit outside of business.
It's funny actually, because when you asked that question, I was sort of thinking, and the typical vacation where you're sitting on a beach, catching the rays and dozing off, reading, whatever. That's never been attractive to me. So last year, I have 4 young kids, and last year we bought a travel trailer and sort of hitched it to the back of the car, and we went from the West Coast to the East Coast and then back to the West Coast. So we did thousands of miles. So it was fun because we were all in one very small place. And for the kids, which ranged from 2 to 11 years old, for them it seemed like a mansion on wheels. But for me, it was great fun because I could do all the you wake up in the morning and you had a purpose. You've got to figure out where you're going. You've got to hitch the trailer to the back. You've got all these dials and things. I used to fly helicopters a few years ago. And the interesting thing about that is that it's actually very relaxing because you've got so much going on that you don't have time to think about work or anything, because you're so, you're just checking all your gauges and your attitude. And so those types of holidays are the fun holidays, I think, where you're doing things, but also it's great for the kids as well, because, they're part of it and every day is different and it's not just the same old thing. We're going to different places. And for them, it's exciting because they're cooped up in this sort of small box, but actually it is like a home on wheels. So, I think for all of us, my wife included, it was good fun. There were moments where it wasn't fun, because when things start falling off, which is what happens quite frequently with travel trailers, I understand. So you do need to have some engineering capability, I think, before you embark. But those are the great fun vacations, I think.
I love it. That's a great story. I love that. Not anything is perfect. No project is perfect. No business is perfect. The wheels fall off sometimes.
Yeah, I guess literally and figuratively, yes.
I guess vacations are the same. Was there any one particular area that you went to that you really, really enjoyed, like with your top 1 or 2?
Yeah, North Dakota, or was it South Dakota? I think it's the one where the presidents have been sort of, carved into the side of a mountain. I think that's South Dakota.
Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, Mount Rushmore, exactly. Because just that whole area, you've got sort of Custer State National Park and just the whole geography of South Dakota. It was fascinating because when we unhitched the trailer and just went for a drive, it is otherworldly, but in a beautiful sense, as opposed to otherworldly like Utah, which is a bit like you've landed on the moon. But it was, I think South Dakota was the most stunning, landscape.
Interesting. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing. Matthew, when somebody watches this, listens to it, and really wants to learn more about what you're doing, what you're involved in, the capital side of things, the investments, and their interest is piqued, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Well, we've got everything on our website. So it's QuantmRE, which is QuantmRE, QuantmRE.com. And we have all sorts of information on there. There's a calculator that enables you as a homeowner to find out what your property is worth and how much equity we could potentially unlock. There's also details and ebooks that you can download. And there's a whole bunch of podcasts and videos, really, where we explain what we do and how we work for investors and for homeowners. And we have our contact details, so phone numbers and email addresses. So we would love to hear from you and answer any questions that you might have, either from the homeowner side or from the investor side.
Yeah, this has been great, Matthew. Thank you so much. Everybody listening and watching, I want to encourage you to do something really different. Right. So a lot of people like listen or they watch and they're like, oh, this is interesting, but they don't do anything. So I'm going to be the guy to encourage you to actually do something different, do something. Go to the website. The links are down below. So if you're driving or whatnot, they'll be there for you whenever you check back. Go to the website, check it out, do a little bit of due diligence, play around with the calculators and watch a few of the podcasts. And then if you're interested in actually reach out and have a conversation, make contact.
Yes.
It's a
the old-fashioned way. Yes.
It's a game changer. So Matthew, again, thank you. I know you took a chunk out of your day to be here.
No, it's been great, Brad. Thank you. No, I really appreciate you having me on. Thank you very much.
Really appreciate it. All right. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you next time. This is Brad A. Milford with the Unlimited Business Wisdom Podcast, where leaders, seasoned entrepreneurs, and business owners share their wisdom. If you're looking for more on leadership, sales, marketing, or operations to drive team development, higher quality, and high-level sustainable profits, we encourage you to join the Built for Brilliance community on Facebook or reach out to us about one of our mastermind groups, coaching or consulting, or even fractional COO services. You can reach us at buildbrilliance.net/contact. We thank you for listening, for sharing the show, and appreciate your rating and reviews, as this makes more shows possible. Thanks for joining us.